So, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Resting Pitch Face. We've got a really nice topic that we're talking about today, which is AI search, particularly what it means for the construction industry and construction marketing. So, a couple of guests with me today. First off, we've got Natalie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I will, thank you. I'm Natalie Davies. I'm the marketing manager for Heidelberg Materials UK.
And Andy, who we've had on before, but
I'll go again, why
give
not?
yourself a hello.
So I'm Andy Coates-Warner, Strategy Director at Flaunt Digital.
So what we're really focused on today is AI search, which is obviously a very hot topic across any area of marketing at the minute. But we've been digging into a lot recently, and with the work that we do with you guys at Heidelberg, what it means for specific industries. And one of those that is really key at the moment is construction and construction marketing. So I'm going to come in with the first question for you, Natalie. Obviously, you've got a wealth of experience across construction, across the marketing sectors. I think a lot of people come at, something like the construction industry and just think marketing is a boring area of marketing, for want of a better way to put it. And it's that very traditional, old school, do the same thing over and over again that they've been doing for 20 years. What's your take on that?
I think construction is one of those industries where if you've been in it for more than 2 years, you stay in it for life.
Yeah.
So I've been in it for now 10 years, always in marketing, and I can honestly say I love it. It's one of those industries where you're working with companies that are literally building the future.
Oh, yeah.
Like the roads we drive on, the iconic buildings in London that you see, it's all based on construction, and we are part of that. So that's really exciting. And it's evolving as well. So it is quite traditional, but it is moving, particularly in respect of sustainability. So lower carbon products, building a circular economy with recycled materials as well. So there's always new, exciting things to talk about. And digital is a channel that helps us bring that to life.
Oh, 100%. What about you, Andy? It's very much like, I think anybody that goes like B2B or, those slightly more like traditional industries like this that have been around for such a long time, I think people do kind of take that view of, oh, it's just traditional marketing, but it's really not the case, is it?
Definitely not, no. I mean, there's a huge marketplace online for all things B2B and construction in particular. All you have to do is look at search volumes in traditional search. You have to go on social and see that all these B2B construction businesses have, social media platforms, they've got followers, they've got regular posts. There's quite clearly, quite a lot of demand and kind of topics being spoken about across the digital landscape.
100%. So across, sort of how search is changing rapidly across every industry at the minute, how do you think this specifically relates to construction? So I think, looking at it from that point of view of a buyer, whether that is a B2B buyer, whether it is, a day-to-day consumer, how are they searching differently now to how they did, say, a few years ago?
Who wants to start? Shall I go first?
You go for it.
Okay, so I've done a huge amount of research over the last kind of 6 to 9 months around lots of different sectors across different AI platforms. And I think when you draw down into kind of B2B, and this is valid for construction and other B2B sectors, actually AI platforms are creating a whole new type of search that didn't really exist before. If you think about a kind of somebody working in procurement and vendor selection, they're actually using AI platforms to cross-compare and create lists of businesses that are actually meeting the right criteria up front to even send a tender to, which means that if you're not creating the right content and giving the right signals to AI platforms to put your content in the mix in the first place, you might never even make it onto the list anymore to be, sent a tender document or an RFP. So at a really rudimentary level from a procurement perspective, it's having a huge impact. And I think we ran a survey at the back end of last year that quite clearly showed that actually AI is being used more than kind of any other platform for comparison, because it generates the answer and answers that query there and then. You don't have to go to search and click through lots of different third-party sites to be able to answer that query. But I think also from a general kind of, even like a direct-to-consumer kind of construction perspective, even their AI overviews in search are changing the way that people interact with brands. They don't need to click through and visit third-party sites anymore. Sometimes their query are answered within the search result itself. So there's a huge shift, I think, in terms of how AI is being ingrained in the user journey and how lots of different audiences that are relevant within the construction space are being impacted by that.
There's certainly something in that as well in terms of, people going to it for these comparisons. It's shown a huge level of trust.
Yep.
That they are fully going into these platforms and taking what they say as gospel, not then going and doing maybe an extra level of research or whatever else as well.
Yeah, I saw something pretty wild actually a couple of weeks ago, and it was a piece of data that looked at conversion rates for B2B businesses on AI platforms versus traditional search. And I think it was Claude has on average across B2B a 15% conversion rate, which I find absolutely crazy at how high that is. And if you think of around traditional searches, anywhere between kind of 1% to 2%, I think that shows cases actually that it is providing answers to people, creating and summarising content that is digestible for them, answering their queries, and probably providing the right, or to an extent, certainly part of the right recommendation to them that's encouraging them then to go through and convert, whether that's a lead, whether that's purchasing something, that's, to be determined on the business. But it's a huge conversion rate, 15+%.
That is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Natalie, from sort of, your point of view of seeing it day to day, having those conversations with people, watching that journey play out? How's that changed over the last few years from, what you were witnessing 10 years ago?
I think we're definitely seeing a shift. We still see traditional search as a huge traffic driver to our website. But we are also seeing a dramatic increase in LLM references. Now, the lines are slightly blurred when we look at that data to see where search is coming from. The likes of Google, that could be AIO, or it could be they're using Google AI mode. But actually, the level of detail is still quite limited.
Oh, we love an attribution challenge.
Yeah, so trying to understand that level of detail to really break it down is still challenging.
Yeah.
But we are still seeing that Google and search is still huge for us in construction in our case.
Do you think it's leading to, from your point of view, in terms of like sales conversations, are they longer, shorter? Is there less information you're having to feed people because they're finding it easier online and they come in a little bit better prepared?
They are doing a lot more research, and I think this is how the search is changing as well. People want answers immediately, so they will go to their preferred channel and asking those longer form questions to get the level of detail without even going onto your website. So I think we are seeing some more, particularly the technical related questions. They are a lot more informed and asking a lot more technical in detailed questions, which we are seeing. But we are still getting a lot of, I've seen this, I need a quote for this, so the basic level as well. So that's where we need to be really mindful of our website and our digital space is able to provide answers to everything pretty much, which then, it's a very big task that we're trying to solve.
It's just given sort of more jobs for marketers to do, isn't it? Yeah. Always good. Keeps in a job. Yeah. And what about, so the traditional way would have been, Google as a start point for most people. I guess it's a question for both of you, really. Do you think that's still most people's starting point, or are we seeing more and more people turn to, say, LLMs first or social media first?
I think from our side of things, we're definitely still seeing a lot of search starting with the likes of Google.
Yeah.
But we are seeing it still quite fragmented, and I expect that will continue to fragment. But at the moment, it's still predominantly our main traffic driver.
Yeah, I think you've got three types of people. You've got people that will always go to traditional search first. It's what they've been used to for years. So, it's difficult to break those habits. I think you've got some users that are early adopters of LLMs and will natively go to an LLM to ask a question before they then maybe go to search once they know specifically what they're looking for. And then I think you've got people that will blend between the two depending on what they're looking for. Some people, if it's a really complex question, might go straight to an LLM wanting a summary of an answer very quickly. If somebody is looking at a very top level, they might go to search to get a very broad view about the information that's available there. So I think it varies a huge amount. I think what we'll start to see, though, is we'll start to see, similar to what you said, more of a mix, and it becoming a lot harder to understand where audiences and users are starting their journey. And being able to track and monitor and record and analyse that is going to become harder than ever, I think, as well as we move forward.
So how this actually looks for people that are dealing in construction marketing day to day, what do you think is changing most about the way that people are discovering these products, discovering suppliers? Is it LLMs? Is it more, is there a shift towards social, for example? More people coming through channels like that. What's the biggest one you're sort of seeing at the moment?
I think what we're seeing is we are obviously quite visible on social media, but I don't think we really get our what we would call conversions or our leads from that. I think it's a good opportunity to keep your brand visibility high, and it gives you an opportunity to link in all of your channels. But we are still seeing our website as our shop window, really. We want to ensure that all of our content is consistent, all of our experts have a voice there, and then in terms of our online visibility, everything is more consistent and we're more likely to have a stronger trust signal.
100%, yeah. I guess, from your point of view and from what you've seen in the data and stuff, Andy, is it that case of, this converts well, let's stick with that, or is it more the focus of we need a bit of everything on every channel?
I think it comes back to kind of what Natalie said there. I think it comes down to where your customers are going to trust and be able to find the right information. I think the word trust is quite a complex topic to get into a podcast, but I think, to be visible within search, to be visible within LLMs, it does come back to trust and having the right trust signals. So part of that is having great on-site content, because that powers what an LLM can pull from your site and then condense and provide as an answer to a user. But also it includes, utilising your experts to put commentary in press and being thought leaders within the press space. That is another trust signal. Showcasing your thoughts across social and building up your following and your engagement. All of those signals kind of play into search and LLM performance as well. So really everything's interconnected with each other. Nothing really sits in silo anymore. You can't just focus on web content and leave everything else, because you will never be able to reach the maximum potential that is available to you, where really starting to optimize and understand what content is right for your audience on social, what content is right to push out to press, what content is correct for your site. Understanding and building that kind of sphere of influence and knowledge is absolutely vital to making sure that you're then visible across everything.
Yeah, I think the really key thing that you've sort of pulled out there for me is that, making sure what's right for each of those platforms. There's, it's very easy to just put something up one place and then regurgitate exactly the same across every single channel. But we know from, experience, we know from looking at the data that that's not where performance happens. Those audiences differ hugely sometimes across each of those different platforms.
Definitely. And I think a lot of brands make the mistake where they, as you said, churn out the same piece of content across every single platform imaginable. And I would say that's the wrong strategy to employ. What you need to do is you need to understand what your audience are looking for on each of those individual channels and create content that's native and right for that channel. That also makes it easier for you as a marketeer in-house, because you're not having to create the volume of content. You can be more considered, you can be more targeted, and thus hopefully see a better end result off the back end of that content.
Yeah, and I think for us as well, being an in-house marketing team, you need to understand your audience. So the more you understand the target audience, then you can use that one piece of content, tweak it and change it relevant for the platform, for the audience, and then you start off with one piece, but then you end up with 10, but it's so much more relevant and powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it, isn't it? It's making it native to the platform there, which is real key. So once upon a time, the conversation in every the room with every agency, every marketer, would be, where are we ranking on Google? Are we on page 1? How important do we think that is? Is ranking number 1 still matter? Is that still something that people are prioritising, particularly across that sector?
I'd say for us, It's still important, but it's definitely not the most important metric. You know, it is nice to know where you are overall, you know, what's doing well, what's not. But at the end of the day, people still aren't clicking to page 10 to find what they need. So you still need to have a little bit of knowledge as to where you are, but it's not the most important thing anymore. You know, we're looking more at, you know, the share of search, the LLM references, and that gives us more of a relevant picture of our performance in the digital space now than just solely looking at, okay, what sessions have we got, and, you know, where are we ranking? And we needed to educate our internal stakeholders on that as well, you know, how things are changing. You know, previously you would have seen this, now we're seeing this, and this is why. So we're just bringing people along on that journey.
I think that's a battle in itself, isn't it? You know, particularly when you're dealing with multiple stakeholders in a business, communicating how different that landscape is now compared to the stats that, you know, you might have been talking about a few years ago can sometimes be the biggest battle of them all, can't it?
Yeah,
I'm pleased you said that, if I'm honest. But yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, it's important still to perform and rank well in traditional search. You know, I'm sure every business would like to rank in P1 for every single keyword relevant to their site and their services, products. Reality is you never will, but it's still important for the ones that are commercially relevant to rank and perform for them. I think the search results though have changed and evolved so much, even over the last 12 months. With the introduction of AI overviews, that takes up a huge amount of real estate for informational intent queries more than any other. And often actually, if you are visible within the AI overview and you're answering the query, actually, you're probably not going to get a click by potentially being in position 1 anyway, or your click-through rate is going to be severely diminished. So we talk a lot about zero-click rates here, but you know, where an AI overview is present, a zero-click rate on average goes from, I think it's about 34% without one, up to about 44%. So, you know, that's a big chunk of traffic that's gone because that query has been answered in search. So, I think for me, as you said, it's about understanding the full picture of share of search. So how visible is your brand within search versus competitors? It's about understanding actually what's your overall digital visibility like, and are you visible to the right people at the right time? That's what should really matter.
How much do you think those rankings affect what LLMs serve now?
I'll take this one to start with.
Thanks.
So I think slightly connected. So traditional search and the algorithm that Google has, and other search platforms, because essentially they just replicate what Google do. If you perform well for Google, you're setting yourself up to perform well in the first instance within an LLM. If you've got great quality content, you've got the right trust signals, you've got the right PR and backlink and brand mention signals, all of those factors are considered when an LLM determines what content it's going to serve and potentially take snippets from. So good SEO is still relevant for LLMs, but there are other things that you should be doing for an LLM to make sure that you are as visible as possible within those responses and prompt answers that are being generated.
I'm really glad that's what you said, because I think there's been a lot of chatter recently, and this is kind of what I wanted to get into, where people are like, SEO is dead. It's like, no, it's not.
It's just evolving. That's all. Yeah.
And do you know what? It's always evolving. That's been the case for the last 20 years. It changes constantly, and it always has. But there's, you know, there's marketers, there's even agencies that are out there saying like, you know, traditional SEO doesn't count anymore. It's like, it 100% does.
I think I use this analogy all the time. It's a little bit cheesy, so forgive me, but traditional search, technical SEO, it's like building a house. Technical SEO is the foundation. Without getting that right, you can have the best content in the world, you can invest in digital PR to build backlinks, you can create great UX. All of that fundamentally is never going to reach its maximum potential if your foundational element isn't right. It's the same for LLMs. If your site hasn't got great tech SEO, it isn't making your content accessible, it isn't making it easy for an LLM to access that content, you're not going to be cited within the responses in an LLM platform. So when people say that SEO is dead, it's just factually incorrect. SEO is still incredibly relevant, but I think the word search engine optimization is maybe the term that is becoming outdated. I think for me, it's about organic discovery and where people can discover your brand and your content and your product services. That is evolving. And SEO I think as a word maybe isn't the most suitable term anymore.
No, but the things that make up what we would have once traditionally thought
Absolutely.
about, they're going nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So do we think that marketers are still focusing on the wrong metrics when it comes to marketing strategies? You know, it's taken a little bit for people to kind of catch up to LLMs and optimizing, you know, for that style of content. And there's quite often, you know, construction, for example, is quite a traditional industry. In terms of what you guys look for, in terms of what metrics are expected, that sort of thing, do you think that's changed quite drastically?
It has definitely evolved.
Yeah.
So whereas previously you would have looked at your sessions where you're ranking, now we are looking at a broader range of metrics in terms of share of search and our LLM references. So we are including those as standard. But underpinning it all is the conversion. So you could have great stats, but if they're not converting, they're pointless. We're still a commercial business at the end of the day. So really, you just need to understand what a conversion looks like for you. What does that mean? Are they, if you're an e-commerce brand, are they purchasing on the site? And what does that journey look like to get to that purchase? We're not an e-commerce site, so actually conversions for us look like slightly different. But we need to understand, okay, well, we will count X as a conversion. So how do we get the most out of that? And then we will build our success story around those conversions.
I mean, you would hope every marketer is looking at conversions, but I mean, we know it's not the case. You know, the number of people that just focus heavily on impressions or, you know, chase, say, a viral post and think it's going to change absolutely everything. It's like, you're probably still not going to get any conversions off that, but good luck. What about you, Andy? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree with Natalie. I think, you know, at the end of the day, it comes back to the commercials. If you're not impacting commercials, then your strategy's wrong and you're not doing the right activities to drive that. You know, I think anyone can go and drive impressions. That's not a difficult thing to do. You could put any ad on Meta, put some spend behind it, give it a broad audience, and it'll give you impressions. Doesn't mean that it's the right audience that you're targeting, doesn't mean that you're giving the right message to them, doesn't mean that they're going to click through and engage with your content, doesn't mean that they're going to submit a lead and then potentially become a customer once sales teams kind of pick up the reins. So I think for me it always comes back to the commercials and understanding that and setting the right strategy to deliver against that. And I think sometimes, you know, you do on the flip side of that, if you are starting from a flatline perspective, sometimes it can take time to build that momentum and start to see those improvements. Sometimes you have to put in the legwork of creating like content libraries on your site around certain topics and building that topical authority through content before you start to see the rewards and fruit of your labour in terms of leads, sales, conversions coming through. So I think it's not always do this and we instantly see conversions off the back of it. Sometimes it can take a bit of time for that to bed in and to really start performing for you.
So, a little debate question, I guess I would call this.
Go on then.
Do we think marketers are overreacting to AI search or underreacting?
I'll let you go first, Natalie.
I think possibly underreacting. I think there's a lot of talk at the moment. If you go to a lot of particularly like the B2B forums and events, it's all over the seminar space. But actually what people are doing maybe isn't as quickly as adopting. You know, how are you structuring your site to get the most out of this, and, you know, building on your content clusters, and actually the implementation of how you are going to reap the benefits of, you know, AIOs probably isn't as quickly adopted as I would have thought.
People are very quick to be like, are we appearing in them? Or what do we look like in, you know, what do we look like to LLMs? But not actually getting down to the nitty gritty of, right, how do we get in them? How do we improve that?
And like you said, it's the long game, isn't it? It's
Exactly.
not just you do it one day and you appear the next day. You do have to put a lot of work in to get that long-term benefit.
Definitely. And I think that, you know, the brands that actively target LLMs and try and optimize to be visible in LLMs now will, as you say, in the long game, they will benefit longer term from that. I think, you know, if you think about 2022, ChatGPT to the general public didn't exist. Nobody really had heard of it unless you were working within tech or maybe within search to an extent. But, you know, in the space of 3 years-ish since they became kind of publicly viable, they've evolved and changed so much in what they can do. It started off as basically a tool to finesse your copywriting, and it became absolutely spammed with people creating content from AI. But now, you know, one of the biggest uses of AI is actually to search. And I think ChatGPT had a study with Harvard University where I think it's about 51% of all searches now have all prompts have a search intent. So that's basically 1 in 2 now have a search prompt going into it rather than a task or a output prompt going in. But I think if you think about where it's come in 2 or 3 years, imagine where it'll be in another 2 or 3 years. Imagine where it'll be in 5 years, in 10 years. And if you're not getting on board now, you're not going to set yourself up to be able to perform within that time space as well. And it's a little bit like how Google evolved. If you didn't do the right kind of traditional search tactics back in the day, you wouldn't perform within search. And as Google has evolved and created changes in their algorithm, new elements that they look at within their algorithm, if you don't adapt and evolve with that, you're not going to be visible. And it's the same within LLMs as well.
Yeah. I think it's that, you know, that public adoption of it and the way it's come from, like you said, a tool to actually people just using it. You hear people all the time just like on the street saying, oh, just ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly.
When they used to say, you know, I'll Google it. My partner, I think he only discovered ChatGPT about maybe a year ago. Right, so he doesn't work like on computers. He doesn't work like in our industry or anything like that. So I think he's quite a good example of, you know, it was something he heard about in the news but was never bothered by it. And then I made him download it one day. And now I'm not joking. He literally has like full conversations with it. Like he talks to it, like puts it on the voice mode. And he's just talking away to it like it's his mate. I'm like, that's so weird.
It's interesting, isn't it? How people are using it. It's they build quite a reliance on it.
Yeah,
for everyday things.
Yeah,
I think though as well, it's also becoming more ingrained in people's lives because if you think about, you know, everyone has a mobile. Mm-hmm. You think about Siri is now powered by Gemini, and Apple Intelligence is going to evolve fairly dramatically over the next 2 years. That is the most used handset, at least in Western Europe anyway. If you think about Android, that is powered by Gemini. You know, to an extent, some will argue that probably means that Google are going to win the AI race eventually and overtake ChatGPT. But, you know, it's going to be ingrained more in people's day-to-day lives. These tools are going to take over activities that they would do manually anyway. Yeah. People just don't really realise it yet. Yeah. And if you think about shopping online, and I know that we're maybe going off topic a little bit from construction, but I guess if you think about like builders merchants and things like that, where they have an e-commerce platform, they transact with customers online, you know, there is agentic commerce at the moment across ChatGPT and Gemini where the agent will essentially make product recommendations and add it to a cart and check out on your behalf. But that's already starting to evolve where you can have one checkout for multiple stores online. So you could get 5 products from 5 different shops and have one transaction on your Gemini account. And that will get to a point actually where it starts to understand, okay, maybe you're looking at, let's say you're a DIYer, you're looking at doing a DIY project in your house. It understands what materials you're going to need. It'll put that shopping list together for you and then complete that transaction on your behalf without ever going to a third-party site. Yeah. Now, that is where it becomes super useful for a user to cut down the amount of time. Imagine a like small tradesman, independent tradesman. How much time is that going to save them if they can utilize agentic commerce rather than having to manually go online or go into a store and be able to go through their kind of requirements with someone? So I think, you know, that's where it becomes a lot more mainstream and starts to be embedded in people's lives a lot more.
Do you think an industry like this, I'm coming to you with this, Natalie, you know, construction is quite old school.
Yeah.
I think they do kind of, you know, people particularly in this industry do still like a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it will take a bit longer for things like that to be adopted by this audience?
I wouldn't be surprised. And I think as well, because if you look at the whole construction industry, it is quite fragmented. You've got the clients and specifiers right at the beginning of the project. You know, the architects who are designing it, they will be using AIs for a very different purpose to what the contractor will. Same with engineers, and you think all of those stakeholders throughout that whole process are all going to have very different needs, will need a very different information. So I think the journeys will evolve, but I think probably at different stages.
I think a really interesting thing for a business like Heidelberg Materials will be actually we have agentic commerce, but we'll get to a point where actually the AI platform will submit a lead on that user's behalf as well. So somebody won't necessarily have to visit your website, but your website still powers all the content that's being provided to that user to get them to make the decision to convert in the AI platform. So I think, where you're supplying other businesses and other members of the construction kind of trade, I think that is where it'll start to evolve, at least within the next kind of 12 to 24 months, before kind of wider adoption picks it up.
Okay, so the next sort of topic that I want to cover, I think is one we could probably talk about forever, but brand trust and expertise and how important that is. So the sort of first question that I've got is, if AI can summarise everyone's content, does brand become more important, less important?
Oh, I'm going to jump in.
Go for it.
It absolutely becomes more important. I think the importance of having really clear brand trust signals, the authentic voice that is consistent across all of your channels, becomes so much more important. So you need to be consistent across all of your channels, and your brand is a point where you can distinguish that. If these AI platforms can search across all these digital channels and come up with an answer, then particularly as information gets a bit confused, the brand is a clear differentiator that can help you stand out.
I think the really key thing there as well is, if you're coming into LLM asking all these questions, but there's one that you recognise because you've seen it before, that's an instant green flag, isn't it, at that point? And that's what really helps sort of help people, maybe guide them down that one. If it is sort of like a comparison question, for example, it's much easier to jump on what we know. There's a bit of psychology behind that, that is really important to any marketing strategy.
Definitely. I think it also goes the other way, though, that actually brand signals are so important just to be in the response anyway, and to even get a mention or citation. If you're a brand that is visible across press sites, that are building brand mentions, that are building backlinks, that are being seen as a thought leader in your space, versus a brand that isn't, AI is more likely to recommend you in that response to a user anyway. And then once that user sees that response, they're more likely to then engage with your brand because they recognise you from being a thought leader across press sites, whether that's, industry publications, whether that's, even mainstream media to an extent, depending on which brand you are. But yeah, brand is so important across the whole spectrum of AI.
Oh, it's only going to get more important as well, isn't it? There was very old days of SEO. It was maybe a little bit less about brand and a little bit more about how many keywords can you get in here. But as things have evolved, I think it's just becoming, the main thing that people really need to be focused on. So I guess that sort of leads us quite nicely on to the next question, which, as this information is getting easier to access, as people are wanting, these quicker answers, and they don't want to scroll through anything, they want to go query something and instantly get the answer. What at that stage is going to make a brand or make a supplier stand out?
That's a very good question. I think it comes down to trust more than anything. I think it's kind of, I guess, almost repeating what we've just been through to an extent. But if you're trusted, if somebody has seen you before, if they've heard your opinions before and agree with them, if they recognise your products or services as quality and trusted, they're much more likely to engage with you once they see you being referenced within that response. I think if you're a brand that, doesn't do any brand activity, I think you will struggle moving forward. And brand activity doesn't mean that you have to go on TV or go and buy billboards. That is not what I mean by investing in brand. It's actually just being very sensible with actually what is the right brand marketing strategy to go and build trust and authority within your topical space. And for a lot of brands, that might be utilising your experts and providing quotes and comments to press and to industry publications. It might be creating thought leadership content and pushing that out to press. It might be that you are running social ads to prospect and drive top of funnel awareness, so that when people get further down in that journey and access an LLM or a search platform, that actually they have seen your brand before and resonate with the message that you're providing. There's, so many different factors and offshoots of brand marketing that you can play on. I think it's just about understanding where you should leverage and pull those levers in the right place.
Yeah, and as well, you need to stay true to your brand in terms of what does the brand stand for, what are the values, and how do you bring that to life across everything.
Definitely.
So we identify, key topics that we want to be known for. I mentioned sustainability is one. Well, what does that mean for us, and what are we doing in that space? And then we can build out all of the content to actually bring that to life. So it's not just words on a page, it's actually lots of proof points and consistent messages across all of the website and the channels.
I think also providing the right tools to use as well, so like concrete calculator, what a useful tool that is for someone that needs to calculate how much they should be ordering and looking to bring into their job. So building trust can be as basic as creating the right tools to help somebody make the right decision as well.
So I guess this leads quite nicely on to how do you balance, particularly across construction, it's quite heavy with technical information that can be quite complex, quite hard to break down and, explain to a general consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you balance that across marketing? Is it using those experts? Is it...
Yes. So we have identified several internal experts that we lean on quite a lot. So, marketing can produce content to a certain extent, but you are reliant on those experts to get everything correct. When you've got engineers needing technical information, you need people who have that knowledge. So, and we work quite transparently with those experts to say, this is what we want to do, this is why we are doing it, and this is what we need from you. Because it's difficult. They have a day job, so you do get some bottlenecks, but I think having that transparency and why it's important, particularly with the website content, we have a lot of technical articles to build out those cluster topics, and we always have a technical person checking those over. So again, it's, can you check this, can you support with this, just to have that expertise. So Heidelberg Materials is a credible, trustworthy brand, and those experts can support with that.
So we always talk about, what's the right thing to be doing, what everybody does well. But I think a really nice question to actually sometimes come back to is what people shouldn't be doing. What do they all need to stop doing right now? So I guess across, construction itself, what's one thing you'd sort of say to marketers, like, actually it's time to hit that on the head now?
Oh, I would say sticking to traditional search by itself without a broader picture of LLMs, AIOs in terms of where digital is moving to. So stop being quite narrow in terms of your digital thinking and output, and think broader. Okay, well, how can we ensure that we are still ranking or being referenced in 5-10 years time?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's 100% accurate. I also think, and I've seen this a lot, AI generated content, just spamming content.
Please.
There's, I think, not necessarily just construction, but general B2B. I think there was at least 12, 18 months ago a period where there was a lot of heavy AI generated content being produced, which, is not going to perform for you. It's not going to do what you need it to do. AI serves a purpose at the planning stage. It serves a purpose even potentially at the bottom of that content creation phase of checking that content, but certainly not the production of it and the wholesale, artificially producing content. It's just not the right thing to do.
I think what you're referencing there as well, Natalie, with your strategy, there's literally like the opposite of that.
Yes,
the
definitely.
trouble you have there is, AI generated content is just things that are already out there. Whereas, you're using experts who have a completely trusted experience, they've built up an opinion of something, and they might have a completely different way of doing it that nobody's written about before. It's got the potential to be absolutely completely unique.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's all original content.
Yeah. So, I guess off the back of that, what do you think people are spending money on today that in 5 years' time they won't be?
Good question. You got any immediate thoughts?
Yeah. I think traditional advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we've mentioned, construction is still quite traditional, but I think we'll see budgets evolving to have more for, when it comes available, particularly like LLM, if there's advertising opportunities there. So shifting spend into a more digital space, whether that's content, advertising. I think that will be an evolution.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Struggling to think of anything, if I'm completely honest, alongside that.
I think the way that paid ads in general is going to go is going to, I think we're going to see a lot of people moving away from even, Google to the more traditional Google paid ads to
I
LLMs.
think the Google will evolve to counteract that.
Oh, of course it will. Google's forever evolving.
Google are so reliant on ad revenues that they can't afford to let them slip.
Nope.
So they will evolve, and there's already ad formats where you can target AI responses, and they're only going to expand and become the campaigns that you lead with rather than search campaigns. So I don't necessarily see that you'll diversify away from platforms like Google. I think there's platforms like ChatGPT ads. They're in testing in America. It'll be coming here, I would imagine, probably next year at some point. There will be diversification of ad platforms that you'll be targeting. But yeah, I think like print is probably one of the big areas that I think will diminish. I attended a conference within the construction space not that long ago, and there was a lot of talk around print marketing there, and I just don't see that being as prevalent in 5 to 10 years' time, not when digital will be so ingrained in everyone's day-to-day lives and work activities as well. I think that's the type of budget that will start being moved away from print and being put into platforms like ChatGPT ads, like Google ads to target Gemini, and any other kind of new format ads that come into fruition.
I guess like we said with construction, it is a slightly more traditional from the point of view of marketing. So it's going to take, because there's a lot of industries where they've already got rid of print completely. It's maybe just taking a little bit longer, just with the type of people that you deal with sort of, the traditional aspect of it as well. So that's quite interesting, though, that you think it's going completely, because there is also a slight, I think, resurgence of more companies trying to do a bit more print to stand out.
I think print will have a place for very targeted activity. I don't think it'll have a place for like mass print
budgets.
I just don't see that being in existence in 5 years' time, if I'm completely honest. I think there'll always be a place for certain materials to be printed, certain very specific kind of direct mail to potentially play a part for certain construction and B2B businesses. But I think actually as audiences start to evolve their habits, brands are going to have to evolve. And I think, particularly like my generation, and I say millennial loosely, but I think, in 5 to 10 years' time, my generation are probably going to be in a fairly senior level within construction businesses, and some of those audiences that are maybe slightly more against AI and are not adopting it are going to be heading out of their careers potentially. So I think that will bring an adoption and a change of habits within the sector. And, that might be 10 years from now, but that is going to happen, and that will have a knock-on effect to platforms like print.
Do you do any print marketing?
No, but there are still a lot of magazines, printed magazines in the industry.
Yeah.
Most of them have moved to digital or do a combination of both. So there is still a lot of that, and I think it's a security blanket. You know, if you've got a sales team going to see customers, you know, having something to show or talk about, having something tangible, it can be quite nice for some people. So it's understanding, well, one, what the customers want as well, and how we can support those sales teams to have those conversations. And whether that is something digital or physical, we just need to understand that from a marketing perspective to aid those conversations.
I think the other bit that I can see potentially being scaled back are things like trade shows and events. Do you attend any kind of big trade events?
We do.
Have any stalls and stands?
Not that many, to be fair. And they've gone a lot more niche. So whereas you'd have the big ones in Excel at the NEC, now you get a lot more smaller exhibitions that focus just on one topic, whether that could be a sector or whatever, and it's really niche. And they have evolved already. I was
going to say, spending a huge amount of money on a stand for 3 days. Something like the Excel, I can imagine that is the type of activity that will start to be cut as well. And similar, going for like micro, more niche events, plus pushing some of that maybe into platforms like digital. I could also see that starting to evolve over the next kind of 5 to 10 years.
So here's a question for you both. If Google, not just Google, but traditional search, as we see it, just completely disappeared tomorrow, what would you change in your marketing strategy? Would it look that different?
I don't think it would, because I think when we spoke about what we see on our GA4 stats, you still have a blurred line on the Google, whether it is an AI overview or if they use an AI mode. So actually, you would still need some of the principles, and we spoke about, it's the foundations. You would still need those foundations. So we would have to evolve, absolutely. But the principles would still play, I think.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the foundational elements don't really change. The principles of marketing don't really change. I think it's just the end platform is the evolution. Yeah. You still have to invest in your website and the content on your site, because that powers platforms like LLMs. If search wasn't there, you still have to invest in brand, because that we know that's a signal for LLMs, and it's just a general conversion signal as well. So I think nothing really fundamentally changes. And I think Google have said that traditional search isn't going anywhere. But they keep rolling out more AI parts of traditional search, such as AI mode on the bottom of AI overview. So it's coming eventually. They're just not wanting to spook people.
That's it. So I've got a few quick fire questions. So I'll come to you first, Natalie. So what do you think the biggest opportunity for construction marketers is right now?
I think optimizing content and structure as well, not just the content but the structure of content for LLMs.
Biggest challenge?
I would say, because it's quite fragmented in terms of, the start of the project to end, who's going to buy the heavy building materials as such. It's building that picture, understanding that whole start to finish, who has the decision on, the products, and how you can speak to those, because there's a lot of different stages and stakeholders at each of those phases, and products and decisions can change along that route. So we just need to understand it all.
100%. And a prediction for the next 3 years?
Okay. I would say more personalised digital experiences.
I like that. Andy?
Far away.
One thing every marketer should understand about AI search.
It's not powered by keywords. It references entities, which is different to traditional search. So traditional search uses keywords to build a picture and utilise its algorithm to then serve results. An LLM uses entities largely, which is the way that I referenced it in a talk I did recently was it's a little bit like flat pack furniture. Entities are all the individual parts, and your knowledge graph are the instruction manual that help put that together as a user. The user is the AI platform. So understanding how you can optimize your entities to be more visible is absolutely crucial.
100% agree. What's something that people are worrying about far too much?
AI will take over. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is going to eventually take over, but yeah, it's still in the distance. I think people worry that it's going to completely tear up everything we know about digital marketing. It's not. It's just going to evolve what we already are doing, and I think that's probably the biggest kind of concern that I see and hear from clients and people in the market.
And a prediction for search in 2030.
2030, blimey, we are going ahead a few years. I would say that it will be AI first, traditional search second. So I think, as I referenced it earlier, Google recently said that they have no plans to withdraw traditional search, but I think AI will encroach more into traditional search. So the last Google I/O update essentially brought out a whole new host of AI-powered features within traditional search. So the search bar itself has completely changed. It now will start prompting you on suggestions, not just as it always has, but like more AI level prompts, like full sentences and questions, not just maybe 6 or 7 keywords pushed together. We've now got AI mode at the bottom of AI overview, so if you engage with AI overview, you can jump straight into AI mode and takes you away from traditional search. I think there'll be more features that come out that evolve traditional search to make it AI first. I also think eventually, and this is just my personal opinion, I think Google owning Chrome, I think they'll force eventually people to use AI mode as default and test it and see how that changes revenue, how it changes usage. And I think that'll be the first step to AI mode being default Google search. And then I think eventually, probably past 2030, it'll become default for everyone.
Oh, watch this space.
Yeah.
Can we recap that in 2030 and see if it's
Oh yeah, don't hold me to that.
I'm going to put that in my diary today.
Yeah.
Remind me in 4 years' time. Yeah.
I think if you think about where AI was 4 years ago, it didn't even exist.
Absolutely wild, yeah.
Not in the public domain anyway.
Yeah.
So think where it'll be in another 4 years.
Yeah. It's almost a bit scary to think about, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, but I think it's also a massive opportunity for brands as well.
It's exciting, yeah.
It's a whole new way of people engaging with your content and your brand. And I would say, actually, it's just as straightforward to perform in as search is. I think people think it's overly complicated because it's AI, but fundamentally it isn't.
Yeah, it's just evolving, but it's
Exactly.
evolving so quickly. It's just trying to keep up with
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you both very much for that chat. Really
Pleasure.
enjoyed it. And yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.